When it comes to gaming nowadays, it seems like these days, every single game has two sides of an argument. Whether it's people complain how crappy the gameplay is or how underwhelming the story is, they all have something for people to bitch about. And a game that has been obliterated into controversy for the past 10 years is Watch Dogs. By 2014, when Watch Dogs came out, Ubisoft had a growing reputation as a company that delivers very underwhelming, disappointing games at best to their fans. We've all seen the memes. Ubisoft releasing unfinished, rushed, tedious, and mediocre games to their fans. And it seems like for quite a lot of people, Watch Dogs falls right into that category. There's been a growing sentiment of many people framing Watch Dogs as the standard Ubisoft game with dull gameplay, boring storyline, boring missions, and just an overall lackluster game. Not my words. Most times when I hear people criticizing a game that I'm not that familiar with, I just push them off to the side and go into them with no expectation because 90% of the time, people don't know what the hell they're talking about. So with this video, we're going to be discussing why Watch Dogs and Ubisoft have this negative reputation in the public view, and see why so many people just straight up shit on this game. Coming up right after this. Someone sponsor me, please. When Watch Dogs was first announced at E3 in June of 2012, the gameplay and performance that was presented by Ubisoft looked absolutely phenomenal, better than what most other games looked like during that time period. It had photorealistic looking graphics, really cool details that made it look incredible, and a very appealing atmosphere, probably because it's Chicago, like who doesn't like Chicago? But as I'm sure as most of you know, when the game came out 2 years later in 2014, it looked completely nothing like this. It was a simultaneous downgrade that pretty much broke the fanbase in half. Now, the actual graphics in Watch Dogs aren't terrible by any means. They're decent for it almost being a 10-year-old game. But when Ubisoft showed off the gameplay in 2012, they were actually just showing off the gameplay that they rendered using the max compatibility that they could use to make the graphics look incredible, not the actual console gameplay. So when it was time to actually launch the game, they realized, yeah, there's no way we're going to be able to launch these kinds of graphics on an Xbox 360. So they had to downscale the game a lot, so it will be more sustainable for PC and console users. It also was a pretty standard thing that most gaming studios did, and even what some studios do now. It was common to show off stunning graphics that weren't going to be in the final version of the game to get everyone excited, boost the hype, and wow them, thinking that gaming had reached a new point in graphical innovation, blue ball them basically, only to find out that they're being lied to. It's pretty scummy if you ask me. You're literally just deceiving your fanbase into believing straight bullshit without them knowing. I get that you have to attract people's attention somehow, but there's a ton of other ways than just blatantly sending them off. If you look at companies like Rockstar Games, they do a phenomenal job of not making their gameplay teasers and trailers look better than the actual game. Their games always look better than what they reveal to the public because that's how it should be. And you might be asking, you're probably not asking, well, if this was a common thing that gaming studios did at the time, then why were people so pissed when this happened to Watch Dogs? Well, by 2014, rightfully so, people were getting fed up with this type of stuff. People were getting so sick of believing something, getting their hopes up, and it turns out it wasn't true. And a good amount of the playbase went into Watch Dogs expecting to play what they saw at E3, and it's completely justifiable for people to be upset over this. And in a way, this is kind of the first benchmark of what made the game get so much hate by the playbase and just from the general public, and is what pretty much stirred so many people away from the game because what they have seen and heard of it. It was more harmful than good than what they originally intended on accomplishing.
Not a scratch.
Mr. Quinn said you like to see the raw merchandise.
I'd like to know what I'm paying for.
Now, one thing I will give Ubisoft credit for is setting the game in the windy city of Chicago. Why? Well, because I live in Chicago. A little rundown of the premise of the game. We play as vigilante Aiden Pierce, who throughout the game is on a mission to track down and get revenge on the man who got his 6-year-old niece killed, which is done by him using his power of hacking to hack into all sorts of operating systems throughout Chicago. It's clear throughout Watch Dogs that Ubisoft went for a more serious approach than their other games like Watch Dogs 2 or Watch Dogs Legion, which I can say they did a pretty good job at. Now, when I jumped into Watch Dogs, I had just came off from playing Red Dead 2, so the game's interface and the overall structure of it really threw me off. About 100% of Watch Dogs' gameplay revolves around hacking. Most of the missions require you to hack into databases, hack into security cameras, hack into people's phones. You can hack into anything. That's what the game's about. The game is obviously similar to GTA in a way, but Watch Dogs heavily focuses more on stealth gameplay rather than a typical mayhem approach. So many people called Watch Dogs a GTA clone like every other fucking open world game there is. I love the GTA series, one of my favorite games of all time, but Watch Dogs were able to take some things from GTA that made it so popular and added their own twist in terms of hacking and stealth. I mean, a major factor in this game is you can essentially find yourself beating the whole thing without killing anyone, which is obviously easier said than done because it's super easy to just throw in a suppressor and shoot people without them being alerted, but it's a pretty unique challenge. At first, when I was playing through the first mission after kicking Morris's ass, the stealth was throwing me off because it wasn't a style that I was particularly used to. Obviously, in most open world games, there is some type of stealth and certain missions that you have to do, but I had never played a game where the main structure of the game is just stealth and hiding all the time. But after a while, it did grow on me. I did like how the game has a multitude of ways you can approach it. When you're just sneaking around from guards while crouching, after a while that gets pretty damn boring. So you can either just shoot them with a suppressor while no guards are looking, which that's what I do, or you can stealth kill them while they're not looking, or the other type of way, and the main way the game wants you to beat the game, is hack into things to beat missions. You can hack into cameras to observe how many guards are in a room that you need to deal with. You can hack your way through locked doors, distract enemies by turning stuff on, or just straight up blow shit up. And all of this is just in the missions. For a Ubisoft game, the actual open world is honestly pretty impressive in my opinion. Chicago and Watch Dogs has a very unique immersive world design that I haven't really seen any other games do before. For instance, when you're walking down the streets, you can hack into anyone's phone and steal their money from their bank account. Or you can spot a potential crime that is taking place nearby that you can go ahead and stop, even though we're the ones committing a crime on a daily basis. Ubisoft also took the time and made it so that every single NPC in the game has some sort of background and occupation, whether that be good or bad. It's a really small but huge detail in the game that I can only imagine how long that must have taken them to implement into. I do know that some of these occupations are just copy and pasted onto different NPCs, but still this was something that not many other games did. You can also find yourself manipulating traffic lights that will cause giant accidents in intersections, which I won't lie, I thought every time I drove through an intersection, I had to hack into the traffic lights or else I would get a wanted level. But no, I'm just a retard. I think it's also worth mentioning that as you progress through the missions, you can upgrade your character through a skills tree that the game offers. You get points that you can use to upgrade your character's hacking ability, driving, combat, shooting, you get the gist. It's something that most sandbox games do to basically encourage the player to complete these missions and chores throughout the game to level up a character basically, which was semi-disappointing me seeing Watch Dogs have it, which I say that because tell me how many other games you've seen that have a skills tree. I have seen these RPG upgrades in hundreds of other games, and here it just seems like Ubisoft rolled with what every other game did and just plopped it into Watch Dogs. It's just a very generic system that is thrown into a game to upgrade your character skills after completing a mission. It's a cool concept, but they executed it very underwhelmingly. Call me a whiny dickhead, but you can't lie. Having the same exact skills tree system in every game gets very old. Now, without 100% in this game, Watch Dogs took me about a week to beat, I'd say, and during my playthrough, one thing that annoyed me about this game is that the missions felt so repetitive. Here we go now, complain about the goddamn missions. The map is packed tight with many side activities and stuff to do around the city, but playing these missions, they more so just feel like filler content that Ubisoft dumped into with no real substance, to more so just kill time in between missions, which sucks, because in video games, I love playing side missions and side activities. It breaks you away from the main campaign and gives you a different form of entertainment. I mean, hell, look at Saints Row 2. That game has an ungodly amount of fun side missions that I keep doing over and over for hours and hours without getting bored of, but in Watch Dogs, they just get old very quickly, and it makes me not want to bother doing them because of how monotonous they are. It's just the same old go here without being detected, steal something, and boom, mission complete. And I also slightly feel this way for even the actual main storyline missions. They're not that bad because I did fairly enjoy the story of the game, but the storyline missions just felt like glorified side missions that aren't really that fun in the first place, and are just there so you can progress through the game. Holy shit, did I just explain what a goddamn mission is? I need to get better at script writing. I also have to say, the hacking in this game was really boring to me. Outside of just hacking into devices, most of the actual hacking we do are really simple and tedious hacking puzzles, and that's really it. It's in a very linear style format and there's no real sort of challenge. Of course, I'm not saying the need is to make it near impossible to do that requires you to spend half an hour on, but at least make it so that it requires a bit of thinking. The most work I have to do is just press square on my controller and shit happens on my screen. Whereas in a game like Cyberpunk 2077, the breach and control system hacking is much more convoluted and requires you to get your lazy ass up and pay attention to what's happening on your screen, which makes it more engaging. And it's a really big letdown because this game is all about hacking, and the main theme of the game is really mediocre, and I also can't tell you how crappy the driving is. Holy shit. Usually in open world games, I don't really subscribe to the arcadey driving, as I feel like it's way too easy and requires no skill, which makes it not that interesting, and I talked about this more in my GTA 4 video. Watch it if you haven't. I like it when games present some sort of challenge per se, and to be honest, I might sound like a hypocrite here, but driving in Watch Dogs feels like I'm driving on ice rather than a road. Any sort of turn you make, your car slides like crazy, or when you try to accelerate, it takes a long time to do because of how icy the road is, and it's very clear that the drive and handling wasn't Ubisoft's main priority. The hacking and stealth mechanic were what they were more centered the game around. But it's weird that your main source of transportation and the main thing that gets you around the map isn't prioritized enough. And comparing Watch Dogs to GTA 5, which came out a year prior, it's pretty horrendous. And not to mention, you can't shoot out of your cars, which allows enemies to shoot through your cars, making for some pretty shitty and inconvenient circumstances. I also feel like the police AI ruins the experience of the game in quite a lot of ways. Without sounding like I'm complaining, the police in this game are way too damn aggressive. Sometimes when you're about to complete a mission, before you can officially complete the mission, you have to do some stupid ass police chase and lose the cops, which, no joke, takes me like 10 minutes to do because it's just so damn hard to lose the cops in this game for some reason. If a cop is on you, there's really no getting away. It's like their cars have a turbo system times 10. They always catch up to you at very intense speeds and crash into you, which is definitely not the end of the world because the game does alert you and gives you time to evade the police before they start being on pursuit of you. But when they are on pursuit, it's just so annoying. And keep in mind, all of the stuff that I'm saying about this game isn't me trying to sound like a dick. The game had a bad launch in 2014, and it became a trend to shit on the game because it was an easy target and still is now, which sucks. There are parts of this game that I did enjoy, like some of the characters, the stealth, the decent story, the city, but there's just some parts that I try to like but just couldn't because of how monotonous they were. I remember I was watching a Watch Dogs video a few months ago from Exiled, and he made a really good point about the game that I hadn't heard before. He said that the game's graphics aren't terrible, they're okay for it being a 2014 game, but compared to GTA 5, it almost looks like GTA 4's graphics, a game that came out in 2008, which is very interesting. Realistically, Watch Dogs' graphics should have looked better than GTA 5 if we're all being honest, and which is why this game gets overlooked so much because of just the fact that Ubisoft lied to their fans and the graphics weren't what they expected. If Ubisoft was to just give themselves like one more year to finish fully polishing the game to its full degree, then fans would have gotten graphics that would have looked way better than what they got. Because in 2014, Ubisoft had released like 3 other games that were all considered mid, and this is due to Ubisoft trying to rush their games' release date with a hard deadline and putting quantity over quality, which is something that will only get you so far before people start calling you out on it. I mean, that's really what Ubisoft is known for, just pumping out multiple games a year that aren't really that good. But now, putting all aside everything I just said about the graphics, the monotonous storyline missions and all that, this game is honestly pretty decent. I'm not gonna say it's a full-on masterpiece because there's just other open world games that are better than this and that I would personally pick over it, but with Watch Dogs, it gives the player a sense that you can do whatever you want in Chicago. It introduces good characters and a decent story that you can follow that isn't super confusing. It presents a cool atmosphere in the windy city of Chicago. Car chases are pretty cool despite the driver being shit, different ways to approach things, decent clothing customization, and for me at least, this is kind of where my good for the game ends. Most of these things that Watch Dogs nails at are pretty much the bare minimum for what a game is supposed to do good at. Most people expect the game to have a good storyline, decent characters, and a cool world design, but when you go deeper into the actual gameplay and the game's history of how Ubisoft went about this game, they all outweigh the good parts of the game by a lot. Trying to 100% this game feels like a chore. There's games that I can and still am trying to 100%, and they all make me want to explore every single part of them because they feel so engaging, and they're very creative in terms of mission layouts. Red Dead Redemption 2, Sleeping Dogs, Saints Row being perfect examples. Right when this game came out, Ubisoft left a tame reputation on the game forever, which resulted in many people going into the game with an already bad opinion on it, which is sad to see because Watch Dogs had amazing potential to be a really fantastic hacking game. I mean, being a vigilante hacker throughout Chicago and going around and hunting down a specific man sounds really damn cool on paper, but the way Ubisoft went about it, semi-rushing the game, tricking their fans, just didn't work out. If there's one thing to look at how Ubisoft goes about releasing and polishing their games in a time span, look at how many games they've dumped out in the last 10 years, and look at how many titles Rockstar Games have released, but look how perfection they are. That's because Rockstar Games, as scummy as it could be sometimes, they give the devs a good amount of time to really detail every single bit of it, and don't just settle for an alright game like how Ubisoft does most of the time. But nevertheless, it is a pretty decent open world hacking game that I recommend you give a shot at least once, if you can get it on sale. I think I got it for like $10 on the PS5. It has a really cool premise to it, but it was unfortunately overshadowed because of Ubisoft business practice.
What are you gonna tell them if I give you nothing? You're forgetting something. Your sister lives or dies in a phone call.
But with that being said, everyone, thank you all for watching to the end of this video. My next video is most likely going to be on Sleeping Dogs, so I guess you could stay tuned for that. I am working on my biggest video right now. It's basically a retrospective video on all the Red Dead games. Probably going to take me a few weeks or even months to work on, but look out for that. Thank you all for the support again. Really means a lot to me. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.